What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Shy Down Bar Down podcast. Before I get things started here today, I'd like to give just another shout out to my buddy Jake Levinsky for joining me on the show last week. I appreciate his help and support getting my channel started. And yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. Just me today on the show, so just gonna be doing a little bit of recap, a little bit of an overview of the Hawks season, just to begin throughout the first 5 games to start the season here. First point of emphasis is really just the impact of the Hawks head coach Luke Richardson. Um, I mean, he's just even though the Hawks, everybody, every diehard Hawks fan knows that they're not going to be a playoff team this year. They're not going to be above 500. But to have a coach that keeps the players in every single game, mentally, physically, in between periods, it's super important, especially such a young team like the Hawks. Um, Penalty kill has been really good this year, and part of that is just because of Luke Richardson and just the style of defense which he plays on the PK. So that's why the Hawks have one of the best PKs to start the season, really, so far this year. But other than that, I mean, I think the Hawks last year they finished with a 27 and like 54 record, something like that. I don't know how many overtime losses, whatever that adds up to, but that's large part due to Luke Richardson just keeping the boys in check and getting them ready to play each and every game. They're a gritty team. They're a young team. They're not going to win a lot of games, but they're going to give a lot of team fits. They're going to give a lot of other teams' best players tough games, as the Hawks have so far this year. Um, so it's good to see that out of a young team like the Hawks. Um, Moving on, just to Connor Bedard in general. I mean, that's kind of what everybody wants to hear about, and every Hawks fan, that's where their eyes go. I mean, he's the new face of the team, face of the franchise, get kind of guy. So, I think he's handled the pressure really well. Coming into the league as an 18-year-old kid, I'm sure you only have I mean, there's it's just so much weight on this guy, and although he's been held off the score sheet a couple nights, he's been all over the ice, averaging just over 3 shots a game, which is good to see. Um, we want to keep his confidence up, so you know what they say in sports, shooters shoot. So as long as he's getting his shots every night and just attacking not only in the power play, but just 5-on-5 regulation hockey. That's what's most important for him because that's where he's going to be throughout the most of his career is in those big spots. He's got 4 points to start the season throughout I believe it's 6 games. He has 2 goals, 2 points. And he's gone up against some of the best teams. The Hawks they started the season on a nasty road trip. They went Vegas, Boston, Montreal, Toronto, um, and then Vegas. So definitely not an easy way to start the season. Kurt, I think Vegas was our first home game. But anyways, it's still a terrible way to start the season with could potentially 6 playoff teams right there, maybe 5. But Connor Bedard's played exceptionally well against other teams' best defensemen, guys like Sidney Crosby, David Pastrnak, Austin Matthews, Jonathan Marchessault, so some of the really premier name guys in the league. So I think it's so important that when we have our corner piece, our franchise piece playing at this level, it at the very beginning of his career, really, with all the pressure, all the media attention, I think that's huge, and he's handled it really well. So that's just something he needs to continue. And obviously, as the season goes along, some of that media attention is gonna, wear off a little bit. I think the Hawks, their first 5 games were prime time, so part of that's due because they're on national television every night. But that's obviously not going to happen the whole season. So give it 30, 40 games, you'll start seeing them put up some more points, I think, and that's what Hawks fans want to see. Like I said, it's not about the wins and losses right now. It's just about development and getting our young guys like Connor Bedard, like Vlasic, Korshinsky, a lot of these younger guys, just getting them experience, reps, playing with some of the veterans. So that's kind of just what Hawks fans want to see right now, and I think they're going to continue to play like that. Another point of emphasis I want to touch on was just how our goalies have played too. Like I said, the Hawks haven't started the season the greatest. They have 4, I think they're 2-4, but the goalies have played outstanding. everybody kind of questioned how Peter Mrazek would come into the season, kind of being hurt a lot of last year, and I believe a goals against of under .9, which is not very good if I remember correctly. But he's played his ass off, and it's awesome to see him and Soderblom kind of split these games, and it's really competitive for who's going to get that starting spot. And I think over the course of the season, we're going to see Soderblom get a majority of the starts, which he should. I mean, he's a young guy. He's hopefully our goalie of the future. You never know at this point, but Soderblom played really well last year. He's continued that great play into this year. And like I said before, Peter Mrazek he's kept the Hawks in every game, even if the score sheet doesn't say that. I know against it might have been Vegas last night or over they played the other day. Oh, it was Colorado on the road. I mean, it easily could have been 4-0 after the first period against Colorado, and I think it was only 2-0, maybe 3. But he made some saves that were just out of this world, and it's good to see out of a guy like that. Like I said, after an injury-prone season last year, it's good to see Mrazek bounce back. That's huge for the team, especially a team with young defensemen like us. They're not always going to be on their game, even though they're young and energetic. They still have a lot to learn in the league. So that's important that you have a goalie that you can trust behind you as not only his defenseman, but his forwards too. And then kind of just lastly here, I wanted to just touch on just how Taylor Hall has impacted Bedard. I think it's so important for a young player to have somebody to kind of lean on at that age. Taylor Hall is also a former overall number 1 pick himself. So it's good to have a guy in the locker room for Bedard that he can lean on, talk to. They're on the same line, which is perfect. And even though Taylor Hall was out 1 or 2 games, he's had a pretty good season himself to begin the year. Not a whole lot on the stat sheet, but the goals, the points are going to come for both of these guys. That's not what we're worried about right now. But to see those guys, just some of they're getting in the ozone so clean, them too, and to have their third line mate Ryan Donato come over from Seattle and just that just fits them perfectly. It was kind of like that. It reminds me a little bit of the Kane Panarin, Artem Anisimov line back in 2016. It's not free. I mean, obviously you had Eddie Kane, who was an insane player, but at the time Panarin was not a top 10 player in the league. You had Anisimov, who was not even. I mean, not many people know him, but when you have 3 guys that just fit each other's games perfectly, and you have guys that know the role, that's the kind of hockey that you want. You don't always need 3 Connor McDavids on the line, even though that would be nice. But going back to Bedard, Hall, and Donato, it's just been nice to have those 3 guys. They complement each other really well. They've been giving each other space, which is perfect. And that's another thing. Connor Bedard, he's going to draw a lot of attention from other teams and their best 2-way forwards and their best defensemen. So when Bedard has an off night, it's important that Donato and Taylor Hall kind of fill in there for Bedard and vice versa. When Taylor Hall and Donato are struggling a little bit, it's important that Bedard picks them up. So that's kind of what we're looking to see, especially as Hawks fans this year. It's not so much about how many pucks they're putting in the back of the net, but just how they're complimenting each other on the ice. And so far, I've liked what I've seen a lot from the Hawks. And then Kevin Korchinski and Alex Vlasic, I really do think are our next 2 defensemen of the future. I posted something on Twitter the other day, but I'm really hoping that this is our next Keith and Seabrook type players. Obviously, I'm not going to put them in the same sense as Keith and Seabrook, especially Keith. I mean, he's a world-class player. So is Seabrook, but Keith's going to go down as one of the best defensemen of all time. But a lot of similarities that I see in this pairing, even though they don't play together, but these 2 guys in relation to Keith and Seabrook is just that confidence at both ends of the ice. I know Vlasic, he already has a plus minus of +6, and as a young defenseman, that's pretty challenging, especially with the teams that the Hawks have played so far this year. So that's just awesome to see. I think opening night we had him on is either the Crosby or Malkin line, and even though they had some success, Vlasic was he's a shutdown defender. He's a big body that he's supposed to shut down the other team's best player or best players, depending on the night, and that's been awesome to see, especially from Vlasic. And Korchinski's had last couple of games have been a little rough for him, but I mean, like I said, I believe he's 18 or 19 years old, so he's gonna find his way just fine. I'm not worried, but he's had a first few games. I was really impressed with just how quick he's looked on the ice. He just looks comfortable at both sides. He's a little bit more of that two-way defenseman, so that offensive defenseman, if you like to call it that. And Vlasic, in my opinion, is a little bit more of a shutdown defender, even though he's had a few good shots on net too, which is awesome to see. And um, I believe it's either Seth Jones and Vlasic together, or Seth Jones and Korshinsky. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that top D pairing for the Hawks has played pretty well so far this year. And I know I keep going back to they've played some tough competition, but they're going to play tough competition all year, so it's just something they're going to have to adapt to and keep it going. Um, Other than that, I really don't have much. Looking to get a couple more guests on the show these next couple weeks, but I appreciate you guys tuning in for a quick overview of the Hawks season so far, and always go Hawks.